She walked into that party looking for a quiet night. He pulled her aside and changed everything. When a rock star tells you you're flirting with the wrong brother, you better believe there's a story worth hearing. This is what happened when Ruby Carter met Cole Maddox, and why sometimes the biggest mistake leads to the best decision of your life. Before we dive in, I need your help to hit 500 subscribers. If you're enjoying these stories, if they're making your commute better, or helping you fall asleep, or just giving you something to think about, hit that subscribe button. It takes 2 seconds, and it means the world to me. Also, drop a comment telling me where you're listening from. Are you in New York, London, Tokyo, a small town I've never heard of? I love knowing this story is reaching people all over the world. So let me know, where are you hearing this from? All right, let's get into it. This is the story of Cole and Ruby, and trust me, you're going to want to hear every word. Cole Maddox leaned against the wall of the VIP lounge, a half-empty bottle of whiskey dangling from his fingers. The bass from the main stage still thrummed through the concrete, rattling his rib cage in that familiar way that felt more like home than any house he'd ever owned. His band, Blackout Theory, had just finished their set, and the usual chaos of backstage celebration swirled around him like a storm he'd grown tired of watching. "You good, brother?" Tyler appeared at his side. Cole's younger brother by 3 years, but looking about 10 years younger, with that perpetual boyish grin plastered across his face. Where Cole was all sharp edges and hard-earned muscle from years of disciplined gym sessions that kept him sane on tour, Tyler was lean and loose, the kind of guy who could charm his way through any door without breaking a sweat. "Always," Cole muttered, taking a swig directly from the bottle. His tattooed arms crossed over his chest, the black ink stark against his tanned skin. At 6'4" and built like he could bench press the tour bus, Cole had perfected the art of looking unapproachable. It kept the hangers-on at bay mostly. "Well, don't scare off all the pretty girls with that face," Tyler laughed, clapping him on the shoulder before disappearing back into the crowd. Cole rolled his eyes. Tyler had no idea what it was like, being the front man, carrying the weight of the band's reputation on his shoulders night after night. Everyone wanted a piece of Cole Maddox the rock star. Nobody gave a damn about Cole Maddox the person. That's when he saw her. She was standing near the bar, wearing a black leather jacket over a dark red dress that hugged her curves in a way that made his mouth go dry. Her hair fell in waves over her shoulders, and when she laughed at something Tyler said, the sound cut through the noise like a guitar riff through silence. She was beautiful, the kind of beautiful that didn't need trying. All natural confidence and sharp wit written across her features, and she was definitely flirting with his brother. Cole watched, fascinated despite himself, as she leaned in closer to Tyler, her hand brushing his arm. Tyler was eating it up, of course, that idiot grin getting wider by the second. The woman said something that made Tyler throw his head back laughing, and Cole felt something twist in his chest that he didn't want to examine too closely. He pushed off the wall and made his way through the crowd. People parted for him automatically, recognizing the lead singer of one of the biggest rock bands in the country. He caught fragments of their conversation as he approached. "So you're telling me you've never heard of Blackout Theory?" Tyler was saying, sounding genuinely shocked. "Should I have?" The woman's voice was husky, confident, with just a hint of amusement. "I'm more into classical music, actually. Beethoven, Mozart, that kind of thing." Cole nearly laughed out loud. Classical music at a rock concert. This woman was either completely out of her element or had balls of steel. "Then what are you doing here?" Tyler asked, echoing Cole's thoughts. "My best friend dragged me. She's obsessed with your band, apparently. I'm just here for the free drinks and the people watching." She took a sip of her cocktail, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Speaking of which, you're quite entertaining to watch." Tyler preened under her attention, and Cole had seen enough. He stepped up behind his brother, his presence immediately commanding attention. The woman's eyes flicked to him, and for a moment, something electric passed between them. Her gaze traveled up his body, taking in the tight black t-shirt that showed off arms that could probably wrap around her twice. The tattoos that disappeared under his sleeves, the sharp line of his jaw shadowed with stubble, and finally meeting his dark eyes. "Wrong brother, baby," Cole said, his voice low and rough from years of growling into microphones. The woman blinked, her lips parting slightly in surprise. Up close, she was even more stunning. Her eyes were a deep brown, intelligent and assessing. She had the kind of face that could launch 1,000 ships and probably sink half of them just for fun. "Excuse me?" she said, raising an eyebrow. "Cole." Tyler groaned, but Cole ignored him. "You're flirting with the wrong Maddox," Cole clarified, taking another step closer. He could smell her perfume now, something exotic and expensive that made his head spin more than the whiskey ever could. "Am I?" The woman straightened, meeting his gaze without flinching. Most people wilted under Cole's stare. She just looked more intrigued. And how do you figure that? "Because Tyler here is going to bore you with stories about his vintage motorcycle collection in about 5 minutes. And then you're going to politely excuse yourself and never think about him again." Cole took the bottle of whiskey and set it on the bar, giving her his full attention. "Whereas I could make this the most interesting conversation you've had all year. Confident, aren't you?" But there was heat in her voice now, a challenge that made Cole's blood run hotter. "I'm realistic," Cole corrected. "I know what I bring to the table." "And what's that exactly? Arrogance and a god complex?" Tyler choked on his beer, and Cole felt a genuine smile tug at his lips for the first time in weeks. When was the last time someone had the guts to call him on his bullshit? "Ruby Carter," the woman said, extending her hand. "And for the record, I wasn't flirting with your brother. I was just being polite. There's a difference." Cole took her hand, feeling the spark of contact like a live wire. Her skin was soft, but her grip was firm, confident. "Cole Maddox, and there's definitely a difference. Want me to show you what actual flirting looks like?" "You're the lead singer," Ruby said, not quite a question. "The one my friend won't shut up about." Guilty. "She says you're talented but emotionally unavailable, with commitment issues and a tendency to sabotage anything good in your life." Cole laughed, a real laugh that surprised even himself. "Your friend sounds like she reads too much celebrity gossip." "She's usually pretty accurate, though." Ruby tilted her head, studying him with those impossibly deep eyes. "Are you going to prove her wrong or live down to expectations?" "Depends." Cole leaned against the bar, effectively boxing her in without quite touching her. "You planning on sticking around long enough to find out?" "I don't know." "Are you planning on being interesting or just relying on those muscles and that jawline to do the heavy lifting?" Behind them, Tyler had given up and wandered off to find easier prey. Cole barely noticed. All his attention was focused on the woman in front of him, this Ruby Carter, who somehow didn't know or didn't care that he was supposed to be untouchable, dangerous, the kind of guy mothers warned their daughters about. "Tell me something," Cole said, dropping his voice so she had to lean in to hear him over the music. "If you're into classical music, what would it take to convert you to rock?" Ruby considered this, her finger tracing the rim of her glass. The gesture was innocent, but somehow incredibly sensual. And Cole found himself wondering what those fingers would feel like tracing other things. "I suppose the right song could do it," she said finally. "Something with real emotion behind it, not just noise and posturing." "Noise and posturing," Cole repeated, pretending to be wounded. "That hurts, Ruby. Truth usually does." But she was smiling now, a small curve of her lips that Cole wanted to taste. "Though I'll admit, watching you perform tonight, there were a few moments that didn't completely suck. High praise from the classical music snob. I prefer discerning listener. Thank you very much." They fell into an easy rhythm after that, trading barbs and stories. Cole learned that Ruby was an art curator at a gallery downtown, that she'd grown up in Seattle, that she had a weakness for old movies and terrible puns. She made him laugh with her dry observations about the music industry and the absurdity of fame, never once asking for a selfie or dropping hints about wanting to get closer to the band. She treated him like a person, not a commodity, and it was intoxicating. "So why rock music?" Ruby asked after her third cocktail, loosening up enough to let her shoulder brush against his arm. "What made you pick up a guitar instead of, I don't know, becoming a lawyer or something respectable?" Cole snorted. "Can you see me in a suit, arguing cases?" "Actually, yes. You've got that commanding presence thing down. You'd be terrifying in a courtroom." "Music was the only thing that ever made sense," Cole said, more honest than he'd intended to be. Maybe it was the whiskey, or maybe it was the way Ruby looked at him, like she actually wanted to know the answer. "Everything else felt like playing a role. But when I'm on stage, that's the only time I feel real." Ruby was quiet for a moment, and Cole wondered if he'd said too much, shown too much of the man behind the myth. "I get that," she said softly. "Art's like that for me. Everything else is just killing time until I can get back to the gallery, back to being surrounded by things that matter." "So we're both hopeless," Cole said. "Speak for yourself. I have plenty of hope." "Oh yeah? Hope for what?" Ruby looked up at him through her lashes, and Cole's breath caught. "Hope that the rock star who just claimed he could make this the most interesting conversation of my year is going to actually deliver on that promise." Cole grinned, dangerous and slow. "Baby, we're just getting started." The party swirled around them, but Cole barely noticed. He was too busy falling into those brown eyes, trading stories and secrets with a woman who somehow made him forget about sold-out stadiums and platinum records. For the first time in longer than he could remember, Cole Maddox wasn't thinking about the music, the band, or the weight of expectations pressing down on his shoulders. He was just thinking about her, and the fact that he really, really didn't want this conversation to end. The next morning hit Cole like a freight train made of regret and hangover. Sunlight stabbed through the hotel room curtains with unnecessary violence, and his mouth tasted like he'd been licking ashtrays. He groaned and rolled over, checking his phone out of habit. 17 missed calls from his manager, Pete, 43 texts in the band group chat, and one message from an unknown number that made him smile despite the pounding in his skull. "Thanks for the interesting conversation. You almost lived up to the hype." "Ruby." "Almost." Cole laughed, immediately regretting it as his head protested. He'd gotten her number at some point during the night, between the fourth whiskey and the deep conversation about whether art could truly change the world. Ruby had argued yes, with the passion of someone who'd built her entire life around that belief. Cole had argued no, with the cynicism of someone who'd seen too much of the industry's ugly side. They'd both enjoyed being wrong. He texted back before he could overthink it. "Almost? I'm wounded. Let me make it up to you. Dinner tonight?" The response came faster than expected. "Can't. Working. Some of us have real jobs." Cole grinned. "Lunch then. I know a place." "Fine. But if you're late, I'm ordering the most expensive thing on the menu and leaving." "Deal." Pete burst through the door without knocking, as usual, looking like he'd already consumed his body weight in coffee. At 55, he'd been in the music business longer than Cole had been alive, and it showed in the permanent stress lines around his eyes. "Tell me you didn't sleep with anyone important last night," Pete said without preamble. "Good morning to you too." Cole sat up, running a hand through his hair. "And define important. Anyone who could sue us, sell stories to TMZ, or otherwise complicate the tour." "Relax. I just talked to someone." Pete's eyebrows shot up. "You just talked? Cole Maddox, commitment phobe extraordinaire, just talked to a woman at an after-party?" "It's not that weird." "It's extremely weird. You usually avoid conversation like it's a marriage proposal. Pete pulled out his tablet, already moving on to the next crisis. Anyway, we've got a problem. The label wants to push up the deadline for the new album. They want it done in 3 months instead of 6. Cole's good mood evaporated. 3 months? That's impossible. We don't even have half the songs written yet. Well, you better get writing, because they're not budging. The tour's going too well. They want to capitalize on the momentum. Pete scrolled through his notes. Also, Rolling Stone wants to do a feature. Full access, behind the scenes, the whole deal. No. Cole. I said no. Last time we did that, they turned it into some hit piece about my supposed anger issues and daddy problems. Which sold a lot of magazines and albums, Pete pointed out. Look, I know you hate the press, but this is part of the job. You want to stay on top? You play the game. Cole stood, his impressive frame towering over his manager. I'll write the damn album. I'll do the interviews. But I'm not doing full access. My life isn't a reality show. Pete sighed, the kind of deep, world-weary sigh that said this argument was far from over. Fine. I'll negotiate, but you have to give them something. After Pete left, Cole showered and tried to shake off the lingering effects of the night before. He couldn't stop thinking about Ruby, about the way she'd challenged every assumption, every carefully constructed wall he'd built around himself. She didn't want anything from him, which made him want to give her everything. The restaurant Cole chose for lunch was a small Italian place tucked away from the main streets. The kind of spot where the owner knew him well enough to give him a quiet corner booth and not make a fuss. Ruby arrived exactly on time, wearing jeans and a simple white blouse that somehow looked more elegant than any designer dress. You're actually here, she said, sliding into the booth across from him. I half expected you to bail. I keep my promises, Cole said. Most of them, anyway. That's reassuring. Ruby picked up the menu, but her eyes were smiling. So what's good here besides the company? Funny. The pasta's incredible. The owner's grandmother makes it fresh every morning. They ordered, fell into easy conversation again. Cole found himself telling her things he never told anyone, about the pressure of the new album, the way success sometimes felt like a prison, the fear that one day he'd wake up and the music would be gone, leaving nothing but an empty shell. Ruby listened without judgment, without the usual platitudes people offered. She just nodded and shared her own fears, about relevance, about whether her work mattered, about the terror of looking back on her life and seeing nothing but missed opportunities. You ever think about just walking away? Ruby asked, twirling pasta around her fork. From all of it? Every damn day, Cole admitted. But then I pick up a guitar and I remember why I started. It's the only thing I know how to do. That's not true. You're pretty good at having interesting conversations. Cole felt warmth spread through his chest, unfamiliar and slightly terrifying. Only with the right person. Ruby's phone buzzed, and she checked it with a frown. Sorry, work emergency. One of our artists is having a meltdown about the placement of his pieces. Artists, Cole said with mock sympathy. So temperamental. Says the Rockstar who probably throws guitars when a note goes wrong. Only the cheap ones. Ruby laughed, but she was already gathering her things. I have to go, but this was nice. Really nice. Wait. Cole stood too, suddenly desperate not to let her leave. Come to the show tomorrow night. I'll leave a pass for you. I don't know. Please. Let me show you that rock music isn't all noise and posturing. Ruby considered, and Cole held his breath like a teenager asking someone to prom. When had he become this person? When had someone's opinion mattered this much? Okay, Ruby said finally. But I'm bringing my friend, the one who actually likes your music. Deal. She left and Cole sat back down, feeling like he'd just won something important. His phone buzzed with another message from Pete about the album deadline, but he ignored it. Instead, he pulled out the notebook he always carried and started writing. The words came easy for the first time in months, flowing out of him like water from a broken dam. He wrote about brown eyes and sharp wit, about finding something real in a world of fake, about the terror and thrill of letting someone see past the armor. By the time he looked up, he'd written 3 complete songs. The next night, Cole paced backstage like a caged animal. The venue was packed, 15,000 people waiting to hear Blackout Theory tear the roof off the place. But all Cole could think about was whether Ruby would show up, whether she'd like what she heard, whether he was about to make a complete fool of himself. "You're making me nervous," Tyler said, adjusting his bass guitar. "What's going on with you?" "Nothing, I'm fine." "You're never fine. You're always some level of brooding or angry, but this is different. This is nervous. Are you nervous?" "No." "Holy shit, you are. What's her name?" Cole glared at his brother. "Ruby, and shut up." Tyler's eyes widened. "The girl from the party? The one who was supposed to be flirting with me?" "She wasn't flirting with you. I'm aware. You made that very clear." Tyler grinned, that annoying little brother grin that made Cole want to punch him. "You like her. Actually like her." "And I swear to God, Tyler, this is amazing. Cole Maddox, the man who treats relationships like biological warfare, has feelings, actual human feelings." Their drummer, Marcus, stuck his head in. 2 minutes, boys. Let's do this." Cole took a deep breath, rolled his shoulders, and became someone else. The transformation was instant, practiced. The worried man disappeared, replaced by the Rockstar, the god of the stage, the untouchable Cole Maddox that 15,000 people had paid to see. But as he walked out into the lights and the screaming crowd, he found himself scanning the front rows, looking for one face in particular. He found her near the stage, her friend jumping and screaming beside her. Ruby stood still, watching him with those intelligent eyes, a small smile playing at her lips. Cole grabbed the microphone, and for the first time in his career, he knew exactly who he was singing for. The show was electric, the kind of performance that reminded Cole why he'd chosen this life in the first place. Every note felt charged with purpose. Every lyric aimed like an arrow at the woman standing in the front row. He could see Ruby swaying slightly to the music, her initial skepticism giving way to something that looked almost like appreciation. During the final song, one of the new ones he'd written the day before, Cole made a decision that would either be brilliant or catastrophic. He jumped down from the stage, security immediately tensing, but knowing better than to stop him. The crowd parted as he made his way to Ruby, still singing, his eyes locked on hers. He could see the surprise on her face, the way her breath caught as he got closer. When he reached her, he sang the last verse directly to her, close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes, close enough to smell that intoxicating perfume over the sweat and smoke. The crowd went absolutely insane. When the song ended, Cole pulled Ruby close, his lips near her ear so she could hear him over the noise. "Tell me that was just noise and posturing." "That was showing off," Ruby said, but she was smiling, her hand resting on his chest where his heart was pounding like a drum solo. "Did it work?" "Maybe." Cole grinned and climbed back on stage to finish the show, but his mind was already on what came after. The final bows, the screaming encore, the way the crowd chanted his name. It all felt distant compared to the anticipation of seeing Ruby again. Backstage, Pete was having an aneurysm. What the hell was that? You never go into the crowd. You never single anyone out. The internet is already going crazy trying to figure out who that woman is. "Her name is Ruby, and she's off limits to the press," Cole said firmly. "Off limits? Cole, you just made her the most famous mystery woman in rock music. There's no putting that genie back in the bottle." Cole's jaw tightened. He hadn't thought about that, about how his impulsive gesture might affect Ruby's life. Damn it. This was why he didn't do relationships. Everything he touched turned into a media circus. He found Ruby and her friend waiting in the VIP area, the friend practically vibrating with excitement. Oh my God, that was incredible. You sang to her. Cole Maddox sang to my best friend. Jess, breathe, Ruby said, but she was looking at Cole with an expression he couldn't quite read. Can I talk to you? Cole asked, gesturing to a quieter corner. Alone? Ruby followed him, and Cole ran a hand through his sweat-damp hair. I'm sorry. I didn't think about the attention that would bring you. The press is going to try to find out who you are. I figured, Ruby said calmly. It's fine. It's not fine. These people are vultures. They'll dig into your life, make up stories, twist everything. Cole. Ruby put her hand on his arm, stopping his spiral. I'm a grown woman. I can handle some gossip. You don't understand what it's like. Then explain it to me. She stepped closer, and Cole was acutely aware of how good she looked even in the harsh backstage lighting, how much he wanted to kiss her, how terrified he was of screwing this up. Stop trying to protect me from things that haven't happened yet, and just be honest with me. Cole took a breath. My life is chaos. I'm on the road 9 months out of the year. I have a reputation for being difficult and emotionally unavailable, which is mostly true. I've never had a relationship last longer than 3 months because I'm better at writing about feelings than actually having them. I drink too much, I push people away, and I'm probably going to disappoint you. Are you trying to scare me off? I'm trying to be honest. Ruby looked at him for a long moment, and Cole felt like she was seeing right through all his defenses, all the carefully constructed walls. I appreciate the warning, but I'm still here. Why? Because underneath all the brooding and the tattoos and the Rockstar bullshit, I think you're actually a good person. A scared one, maybe. But good. She smiled, soft and genuine. Plus, you did keep your promise about the interesting conversation. Cole couldn't help it. He laughed, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. You're something else, Ruby Carter. I know. She glanced back at her friend, who was now talking animatedly with Tyler. So what happens now? Now I have to finish this tour. 3 more weeks of shows, then we're supposed to hole up in the studio for the new album. And you're telling me this because? Because I'd like to see you again. Multiple times. As often as possible, actually. Cole realized he was rambling and forced himself to stop. If you want. I want, Ruby said simply. But I'm not going to be one of those girls who waits around for you to remember she exists between shows and recording sessions. I wouldn't ask you to be. Good, because I have my own life, my own career, my own dreams that have nothing to do with you or your music. I know. It's one of the things I like about you. Ruby stepped closer, looking up at him through her lashes. What are the other things? Cole's hands found her waist, pulling her against him. Your smart mouth. The way you call me on my bullshit. The fact that you looked at me like I was just some guy at a party, not Cole Maddox, the rock star. You are just some guy, Ruby said, her hand sliding up his chest. A really tall, muscular, talented guy with commitment issues and a god complex, but still just a guy. Keep talking like that and I'm going to kiss you. Promises, promises. Cole lowered his head, his lips hovering just above hers. Last chance to run. I don't run, Ruby whispered. The kiss was explosive. Months of tension and connection and chemistry igniting all at once. Cole pulled her closer, one hand tangling in her hair, the other at the small of her back. Ruby responded with equal fervor, her fingers gripping his shirt like she was afraid he might disappear. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cole rested his forehead against hers. So, we're doing this. We're doing this, Ruby confirmed. But Cole, don't make me regret it. I'll try my best. The next 3 weeks were a blur of shows and stolen moments. Cole flew Ruby out to 3 different cities, sneaking time between sound checks and interviews. They talked for hours on the phone when they couldn't be together, about everything and nothing. Ruby sent him pictures of art pieces she thought he'd like, and Cole sent her rough recordings of new songs, asking for her honest opinion. She gave it too. Brutally honest feedback that made him a better writer, better artist. She pushed him to dig deeper, to stop hiding behind metaphors and actually say what he meant. The album came together faster than anything he'd ever written, raw and real and terrifying in its honesty. Pete noticed the change immediately. Whatever's going on with you and that woman, keep it going. This is the best work you've ever done. But it wasn't all easy. There were fights, usually triggered by Cole's tendency to shut down when things got too real, or Ruby's frustration with his inability to commit to plans more than a week in advance. The press speculation was relentless, with paparazzi camping outside Ruby's gallery and tabloids making up increasingly ridiculous stories about their relationship. Through it all, Ruby stayed. She stayed when Cole had a meltdown over a bad review. She stayed when the pressure of the album deadline made him impossible to be around. She stayed when old demons crawled out of the darkness, and he tried to push her away. And slowly, terrifyingly, Cole realized he was falling in love. The realization hit him one night in the studio, watching Ruby curl up on the couch with a book while he worked on a particularly difficult bridge. She'd brought him coffee without being asked, kissed his temple, and settled in to wait however long it took. She didn't need him to entertain her or pay attention to her every second. She was just there, solid and real, and exactly what he needed. "I love you," Cole said, the words falling out before he could stop them. Ruby looked up from her book, eyes wide. "What?" "I love you," he repeated, more certain this time. "I know it's fast, and I know I'm not good at this, but I love you. And that terrifies me, but not as much as the thought of losing you." Ruby set down her book and crossed to him, settling into his lap like she belonged there. "I love you too, you idiot. I have for weeks. I was just waiting for you to catch up." Cole kissed her, deep and slow, trying to pour everything he couldn't say into the contact. When they finally broke apart, Ruby was smiling, that soft, genuine smile that made his chest ache. "So, what now?" she asked. "Now we figure it out together," Cole said. "The tour, the album, the press, all of it. No more running, no more pushing away. We figure it out together." "Together," Ruby agreed. 6 months later, Cole stood on stage at the Grammys, holding the award for Album of the Year. The speech he'd prepared flew out of his head as he looked out at the audience, finding Ruby in the front row, wearing a stunning black dress and smiling at him like he'd hung the moon. "This album almost didn't happen," Cole said into the microphone. "I was burned out, creatively dead, going through the motions. And then I met someone who reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place. Someone who pushed me to be better, to be honest, to stop hiding behind the image and just be myself." He looked directly at Ruby. "This is for you, baby. Thanks for choosing the right brother." The audience laughed, but Cole barely heard it. He was too busy watching Ruby wipe tears from her eyes, mouthing "I love you" across the distance. After the ceremony, in the back of the limo taking them to the after party, Ruby curled into his side. "That was quite a speech." "I meant every word." "I know." She looked up at him, her eyes serious. "You know this is going to be hard, right? Your life, my life, trying to make them fit together. It's not going to be some perfect fairy tale." "I don't want perfect," Cole said, pulling her closer. "I just want real. And you're the most real thing that's ever happened to me." "Good answer." Ruby kissed him, slow and sweet. "Now, let's go to this party so I can watch you be awkward and uncomfortable around other celebrities. You're mean. You love it. I really do." They drove off into the Los Angeles night. Two people who'd found each other in the chaos, who'd chosen to fight for something real in a world of smoke and mirrors. It wouldn't always be easy. There would be more tours, more time apart, more challenges to navigate. But they'd face it together, the Rockstar and the Curator, proving that sometimes the best songs are written about the people who see you for who you really are. And sometimes, flirting with the wrong brother turns out to be exactly the right mistake. Here's the truth about love in the music industry. Everyone wants you until they have you, and then they want to change you. Cole had learned that lesson early, watching relationship after relationship crumble under the weight of expectations, jealousy, and the fundamental impossibility of being both a person and a product. But Ruby was different. She proved it on a random Tuesday, 3 months after the Grammys, when Cole came home from the studio to find her painting in his living room. Not planning a surprise party or reorganizing his space or any of the other things people did when they were trying to leave their mark. Just painting, lost in her own world, completely content. "What are you working on?" Cole asked, setting down his guitar case. Ruby didn't startle, just smiled without looking away from the canvas. "Abstract piece for the gallery's summer show. The light in here is perfect this time of day." Cole watched her work, the sure strokes of her brush, the way she tilted her head when considering the composition. This was what he'd needed to see. That Ruby had a life that existed completely independent of his, dreams that had nothing to do with his success or failure. She wasn't trying to be his muse or his manager or his redemption. She was just Ruby, brilliantly, stubbornly herself. "I wrote something today," he said after a while. "Want to hear it?" Always. He picked up his acoustic guitar and played the song he'd been working on, rough and unpolished, but honest. It was about finding home in a person instead of a place, about learning to trust someone enough to let them see your worst moments and still choose to stay. When he finished, Ruby set down her brush and crossed to him, paint still staining her fingers. "That's beautiful, Cole. Really beautiful. It's about you. About us." "I know." She kissed him, tasting like coffee and possibility. "Play it again. I want to memorize it." They spent the rest of the afternoon like that, Cole playing and Ruby painting, existing in parallel but connected, each doing what they loved while being near the person they loved. It was ordinary and extraordinary all at once. That night, curled up in bed, Ruby's head on his chest and his fingers trailing through her hair, Cole felt something he'd never expected to feel. Peace. "What are you thinking about?" Ruby asked, her voice sleepy. "How lucky I am." Sappy. "You love it." "I really do." She shifted, propping herself up on one elbow to look at him. "Cole, I need to tell you something." His heart immediately kicked into overdrive. Those words never led anywhere good. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I got offered a position at a gallery in London. Curator position, running the whole contemporary art division. It's my dream job." Cole felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. "London, as in England, London?" "Yes." "For how long?" 2 years minimum. Probably longer if it goes well." Cole sat up, running his hands through his hair. "When do you have to decide?" "I already decided," Ruby said quietly. "I turned it down." "What?" "Ruby, why would you?" "Because my life is here. You're here. The gallery I've built here is here, and I'm not ready to leave that, not even for a dream job." Cole felt too many things at once. Relief and guilt and love and fear all tangled together. "You can't turn down opportunities because of me. That's not how this works." "I'm not turning it down because of you. I'm turning it down because of me, because of what I want my life to look like. You're part of that equation, yes, but you're not the whole thing." "But," Ruby put her hand over his mouth. "Stop. I know what you're going to say. That I'll resent you. That I'll regret it. that you're not worth sacrificing my career for. But Cole, this isn't a sacrifice. It's a choice. My choice. And I'm asking you to respect it. Cole pulled her hand away, holding it between both of his. I love you so much it scares me sometimes. I know. I love you too. Terrifyingly much. But Ruby, if another opportunity comes up, something you really want, I need you to promise me you'll take it. Even if it means we have to figure out long distance or whatever. Promise me. I promise. If the right opportunity comes up, we'll figure it out together. She kissed him, soft and reassuring. But for now, I'm exactly where I want to be. 3 weeks later, Cole proposed. It wasn't planned or romantic in the traditional sense. They were in his home studio, Ruby reading a book while he worked on a new song. The late afternoon sun streamed through the windows, painting everything gold, and Cole looked up from his guitar to find her bathed in that light, completely at peace. "Marry me," he said. Ruby looked up, confused. "What?" "Marry me," Cole repeated, setting down his guitar and crossing to kneel in front of her chair. "I don't have a ring yet, and I'm probably supposed to plan some elaborate proposal. But I don't want to wait. I want you to be my wife. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep next to you every night. I want to write songs about you for the rest of my life and watch you create art and build the life we want together. Marry me, Ruby. Please." Ruby's eyes filled with tears, and for a terrifying moment, Cole thought she might say no. Then she laughed, that beautiful sound that had first caught his attention at the party, and pulled him up to kiss him. "Yes," she said against his lips. "Yes. You ridiculous, impulsive, wonderful man. I'll marry you." They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the art gallery where Ruby worked, surrounded by paintings and sculptures and the people who actually mattered to them. No press, no cameras, no spectacle. Just two people who'd found each other against all odds, promising to keep choosing each other even when it was hard. Tyler was the best man, of course, and gave a speech about how he'd known from the moment Cole pulled Ruby aside at that party that his brother was done for. "I've never seen Cole look at anyone the way he looked at her that night," Tyler said, raising his glass, like she was the only real thing in a room full of illusions. To Cole and Ruby, who proved that sometimes the best things happen when you choose the right brother. Everyone laughed, and Cole pulled Ruby closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. She looked stunning in a simple white dress, her hair loose and natural, exactly herself. "No regrets?" Cole whispered. "Not a single one," Ruby whispered back. "You?" "Only that I didn't pull you aside sooner that night." The reception was everything Cole never knew he wanted, low-key and genuine, filled with music and laughter and love. He played a song he'd written for Ruby, watching her cry openly as he sang about wrong brothers and right choices, and finding home in unexpected places. Later, when the party had wound down and they were alone in the gallery, surrounded by Ruby's favorite pieces, Cole pulled his wife, into his arms. "Dance with me," he said. "There's no music. We'll make our own." They swayed together in the quiet. No audience, no performance. Just two people who'd learned that the best kind of love isn't the kind that's easy or perfect or without challenges. It's the kind that's real. The kind you choose every day. The kind that makes you better than you were before. "I love you, Mrs. Maddox," Cole said. "I love you too, Mr. Carter Maddox," Ruby replied. And Cole laughed, because of course she'd insisted on the hyphen. Of course she'd refused to give up her name entirely. Of course she'd found a way to make the tradition her own. That was Ruby. Always herself, always pushing him to be better, always choosing to stay even when leaving would be easier. And Cole, the rock star who'd spent his whole life running from anything real, had finally found something worth staying for. 5 years later, Cole stood backstage at Madison Square Garden, about to walk out for what would be Blackout Theory's biggest show ever. The band had just released their 5th album together, another critical and commercial success, but Cole barely thought about the accolades anymore. He was thinking about Ruby, 7 months pregnant with their daughter, sitting in the VIP section with her hand on her belly. He was thinking about the art gallery she'd opened last year, the one that was already making waves in the contemporary art world. He was thinking about the life they'd built together, messy and chaotic and absolutely perfect. His phone buzzed with a text from her. "Go out there and show them what you got, Rockstar. We'll be watching." Cole smiled, pocketed his phone, and grabbed his guitar. The roar of the crowd was deafening as he walked on stage, but he found Ruby immediately, always knew exactly where she was in any room. He launched into the opening song, the one about flirting with the wrong brother and finding the right person, the one that had become their story. The crowd sang along, thousands of voices joining his, but Cole sang to an audience of one. Because at the end of the day, after the shows and the awards and the success, what mattered most was the woman in the VIP section, the one who'd seen past the image to the person underneath, the one who'd chosen to stay, the woman who'd proven that sometimes choosing the wrong brother first leads you exactly where you're supposed to be. And as Cole sang the final notes of the song, watching Ruby smile at him with tears in her eyes and her hand on their daughter, he knew with absolute certainty that every moment of doubt, every fear, every challenge had been worth it. Because he'd found his home, not in a place or a stage or a spotlight, but in her. Always in her. Did Cole and Ruby's relationship feel too perfect? Or do you think their struggles made it believable? Here's what I want to know. If you were in Ruby's position, would you have turned down the London opportunity? Or would you have asked Cole to make it work long distance? And what about Cole's grand gesture at the concert, singing directly to Ruby in front of thousands of people? Romantic or reckless? Would you want your partner to do something like that, putting your relationship on public display? Or would you prefer to keep things private? Think about their journey. Cole was the classic commitment phobe, the guy everyone warned Ruby about. But she saw something in him that nobody else did. Have you ever taken a chance on someone everyone said was wrong for you? Did it work out like it did for them? Or did you learn the hard way why people were warning you? Here's the real question, though. Do you believe people can actually change? Cole went from emotionally unavailable rock star to devoted husband and father-to-be. Is that realistic? Or is it just a fantasy we tell ourselves? Can love really transform someone that completely? Or does it just reveal who they were all along? Ruby gave up her dream job in London without even discussing it with Cole first. Was that a mature decision based on knowing what she wanted? Or was it a mistake? Should she have at least had the conversation, explored if long distance could work? What would you have done? And let's talk about Tyler for a second. The wrong brother who inadvertently brought them together. Do you think he ever regretted not pursuing Ruby harder? Or was he genuinely happy that his brother found someone who made him better? The story started with a simple flirtation at a party and ended with a family. But think about all the moments in between. The fights they must have had. The times Cole's demons came back. The pressure from the media. The paparazzi. The constant speculation. Ruby dealt with all of that and chose to stay. Would you have that strength? Would you have that patience? What about Cole's proposal? No ring, no elaborate plan, just a spontaneous moment in his studio. Some people dream of grand romantic gestures. Others prefer intimate, meaningful moments. Which camp are you in? Would you have been thrilled by Cole's approach, or disappointed he didn't plan more? Here's what keeps me up at night. They made it work, but at what cost? Ruby's career was important to her. She built a gallery, found success. But would she have achieved even more in London? Did she limit herself by choosing love over ambition? Or is finding someone who makes you better more valuable than any career achievement? And Cole, he found peace, stability, a family. But he was a rock star, someone who lived for the chaos and the adrenaline. Do you think part of him misses the wildness of his old life? The freedom of not being tied down? Or has fatherhood and marriage given him something even better? Let me know in the comments. Team Ruby's choice or Team London opportunity? And if you've ever had to choose between love and a dream job, how did it turn out? Do you regret your decision, or are you living your best life? If this story moved you, if it made you think about your own relationships and choices, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button. We're so close to 500 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. Every subscription tells me you want more stories like this, more real talk about love and choices, and the messy, beautiful complexity of human connection. And here's what I really want to know. Where are you listening to this story from? Drop your location in the comments. I love knowing that these stories are reaching people all over the world, connecting us through shared experiences and emotions. Whether you're listening while commuting in Tokyo, working out in São Paulo, cooking dinner in Dublin, or lying in bed in New York, I want to hear from you. What part of Cole and Ruby's story hit you hardest? Was it the initial attraction? The vulnerability Cole showed when he admitted his fears? The way Ruby stood her ground and demanded respect? Or was it the ending, seeing them build a life together against all odds? Drop your thoughts below. Tell me if you've ever been the wrong choice that turned out to be right. Tell me if you've ever taken a leap of faith on love. Tell me your own rockstar romance story, whatever form it takes. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to find our person, our home, our reason to stay, instead of run. And if Cole Maddox, commitment phobe extraordinaire, can figure it out, maybe there's hope for all of us. So subscribe, comment, share this with someone who needs to hear a good love story today. Let's build this community together. Let's talk about love and life, and all the beautiful, terrifying, messy moments in between. And remember, sometimes the wrong brother is exactly the right choice. See you in the next story.